States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
United States of America.
But next I'd like to introduce a friend of mine. We've become friends over the last several years, and he's a big supporter of E-Verify, and he's helped us out on all the legislation that's been introduced to prevent illegal aliens from getting things. And like there's two bills now in the Senate by Senator Metz. One of them is to prevent landlords from asking a prospective tenant their immigration status. And the other one was introduced 2 years in a row by my very good friend Chuck Levesque that just got defeated, Mr. Chuck Levesque, the famous Chuck Levesque. And it's a bill, it's a alcohol beverage bill related to sales. On page 6, I forget the line number, but I have a copy of the bill here. Page 6, like line 17, it says, "No person shall be denied a driver's license in the state of Rhode Island based solely on his immigration status." What does that have to do with the retail sale of alcohol? But it happens to be slipped in. And how bad some of them are. When Levesque introduced it 3 years ago, it got defeated. And I really yelled and screamed about that bill up there. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I thought that was like subverting the whole system by him including that. And the lady that put us wise to that called me in the middle of the night and said, "Terry, you got to look at this bill. You got to look at this bill. It says a driver's license in this alcohol bill." And that's how we found it. That's how nobody else noticed it either. But Chuck Levesque called me last year in his own inimitable way. He's the Bonnie Frank of Rhode Island, I used to call him. He said, "Hi, Terry, it's Chuck. I just wanted you to know. Remember that bill that I introduced last year with the driver's license provision in it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm submitting it again. Have a nice day." Yeah, I'm submitting it again. Imagine that. And it got defeated last year too, thank God. But that's how things happen. But somebody that is nowhere near like a Chuck Levesque. As a matter of fact, he's one of my heroes up there. Is the senator from Woonsocket, Marc Cote.
Thank you, Terry, and happy birthday, R.I.I.L.E. I didn't come here with a gift wrapped in paper with the fancy bows, but I am pleased to announce tonight that I filed this year's E-Verify legislation this afternoon. And I'm also pleased to say that we have 20 co-sponsors versus 19 from last year. So I just want to say that it's really been an honor to work with all of you, and really greatly appreciate all the effort that you've expended over the past 5 years, 4 of which I've been working with you on the E-Verify legislation along with Representative John Brian. Unfortunately, as we all know, we lost a very valuable ally in our Governor Don Carcieri. It's kind of changed somewhat the landscape, at least temporarily, on this issue based on our new governor's pronouncements. But one of the things I've learned in politics is that it's important to keep pushing on issues that you believe in. And one thing that I've also come to learn is that you never know sometimes when events can change and cause an unanticipated consequence that could potentially benefit us. So it's important not to despair and say, well, this is not going to be necessarily a good year, when 3 months from now something could happen that will come about and ignite the effort and get behind the work that we've been doing over all these years. I want to thank you. Again, I happened to see some of the testimony the other night in the Labor Committee. Kathy, you did a great job in the House Labor Committee. And again, your support, your backing us up in the media, showing up at hearings, greeting our members by the entrance to the parking lots on big days at the State House. Believe me, get noticed and go a long way. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you. And keep doing what you're doing, and I'll do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. The reference that Mark just had to us being there at the gate when the senators and reps pull in, we were down there quite a few times last year with our signs, and I would say if 50 people went in, reps and the senators usually park in it. No, they park in that area too. I'd say if 50 reps and senators went in, 47 of them said, "Hi, Terry," or "Hi, Roland," or whoever was holding the sign. And the rest of them just put their nose up in the air and drove in like we didn't exist. And but we remember who all of those people are, when we go. And if you can even imagine, Grace Diaz used to stop and say hello to me. Joe Almeida used to stop and say hello to me, and you would think we were, real adversaries on the floor, or we hated each other, but they'd be shaking hands. And
my grandmother came from Russia, a satchel on her knee. My grandfather had his father's cap he brought from Italy. They'd heard about a country where life might let them win. They paid the fare to America, and there they melted in. A lovely lady Liberty, with her book of recipes, and the finest one she's got is the great American melting pot, the great American melting pot.
America was founded by the English,
but also by the Germans, Dutch, and French.
the principle still sticks, our heritage is mixed, so any kid could be the president.
You simply melt right in. It doesn't matter what your skin, it doesn't matter where you're from or your religion. You jump right into the great American melting pot, great American melting pot. Ooh, what a stew, red, white, and blue. America was the new world, and Europe was the old. America was the land of hope, or so the legend told. On steamboats by the millions, in search of honest pay, those 19th century immigrants sailed to reach the USA. Lovely lady Liberty, with her book of recipes, and the finest one she's got is the great American melting pot, the great American melting pot. What good ingredients, liberty, and immigrants? They brought the country's customs, their language, and their ways. They filled the factories to the soil, helped build the USA. Go on and ask your grandma, hear what she has to tell. How great to be American, and something else as well. Lovely lady Liberty, with her book of recipes, and the
gentleman, happens to be my neighbor, happens to have founded a big organization that helped the Lincoln taxpayers, and then he went on to beat somebody in Rhode Island that was, as far as everyone was concerned, was unbeatable. And most people would say, why are you even bothering to do this? But he walked the neighborhood. I saw him in the neighborhood. My wife said, "Oh, here comes that big tall guy with the white hair again." No, that's not. She didn't say that, but I mean, he did come around the neighborhood quite often and explained what needed to be explained, and stayed and talked as long as you had questions, and he stood there and answered them. And he ended up getting elected, and he beat the president of the Senate. Who would ever think you could beat the president of the Senate? But he did it. And Ed O'Neill. Senator O'Neill.
Well, thank you for inviting me tonight. Happy birthday, R.I.I.L.E. Happy birthday to all of you members. You are R.I.I.L.E. That's what it is. It's a membership of people who really care about what's going on in the state and what's going on in the country. And I listened to some of my colleagues' comments, and it really is a pleasure to work with Senator Cote and Beth, and hope to get our friend here next time, Matt Guerrera. And that's what I want to talk about with my few minutes. What I want to talk about is what can you do productively? Okay, so the election was over in November, so okay, we're going to go relax for 2 years. Well, I would suggest to you that's the wrong thing to go do. If you're going to go relax for 2 years, you're going to let things get away from you. Now, granted, we've got a very serious challenge with the governor. It's going to be very hard to get legislation passed. Even if we get it through the House and the Senate, getting it past the governor is going to be at least a very difficult challenge. And you know where he's coming from. You read the papers, you see what his positions are. So it's going to be very difficult to work with our governor on these issues. But so what can you do in the meantime? Well, first and foremost, you ought to be thinking about who is going to run next time for the seats that you really feel should be changed out. So if you look, you're probably in different representative and senatorial districts, you should be looking at, okay, is this person who's in that seat really the person who's looking out for the best interest of all of the taxpayers, not just a select group, not just a particular special interest group, but for all of the taxpayers. How are they behaving on the budget? How are they behaving on different legislation? So you should be working and grooming, targeting people to run so that a year and a half from now, or even a year from now, because it really starts a year in advance, you have people that are ready to go. And also in the meantime, you ought to be staking out your positions in terms of, if you see something you really don't like, write a letter, take a position. And if you're not comfortable writing a letter, draft it and let Terry or somebody else look at it, and they'll help you with it. People are always glad to proofread and edit your letters. Why is that? Because it's a lot easier to take a letter that's already been written and improve it. And when I write things, they're never sent on the first pass. I write it. My wife is a retired English teacher. She goes over it and fixes a lot of things. And then sometimes I ask somebody for another opinion because I'll say, well, gee, this looks a little radical. Maybe I should kind of back off. What do you think? So it's an iterative process, but you need to be active in terms of keeping your views out there, working with your neighbors, working with your friends, getting candidates identified, grooming them, taking notes on the opposition if you are in fact planning to run. But you got to keep working because this is where the real work happens. On election day, it's over. People have made up their minds. People make up their minds sometimes a month before or 2 or 3 months before the election. So you got to do it now. So I would suggest to you that there's a lot of work to be done, and you ought to be working at it. I know in terms of, looking forward to the next campaign, people like us, we're out. We're out at night and we're working on these issues, and I hope you do too, because that's going to accomplish your goals. And remember, we have a new governor, but he's not going to be there forever. So thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Terry.
But before I get distracted anymore, a gentleman I respect a lot. I think we all should respect a great deal. I don't know how much you know about him, but he's one of the fellas that started this illegal immigration challenge, and he started down on the border of Mexico, and he had a group called the MinuteMan. He still has a group called the MinuteMan, and he happens to be here tonight, and I'd like to introduce Jim Gilchrist, if he could come up.
Congratulations, Beth Mora. Congratulations, Ed O'Neill, and congratulations for your re-election. That being said, there are political governors in this country who really do represent us. By the way, you need I'm only going to spend less than 2 minutes here. You need to get therapy about your low self-esteem. There are only 3 or 4 reasons why I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and take a red eye to come here back to the mothership of Rhode Island from my satellite ship in California. That's God, my wife, and to avoid incoming. Well, actually, I just came from CPAC down in D.C., and I'm up here for a week, because this is where I grew up, by the way. I'm a Rhode Islander. This is the flag I took to the border with 1,250 volunteers from all 50 states. And this is the flag I used as our MinuteMan Project banner, along with the U.S. flag. That being said, Mr. Gorman, I am very impressed, just like millions of Americans are very impressed who know about you, but you don't know them. You, a man by the name of Peter Palumbo, a Democrat, have made national news. I hear about you from time to time in Southern California, and I think you've been one of the profound leaders in this movement to bring our country back under the rule of law. That's all we want. And it's my honor to present you with a gold and silver coin with the emblem of the MinuteMan Project. You're one of about 20 people in the country who have it. It is well deserved. You should have it. That was a joke about your low self-esteem. I was the shortest guy in my Marine platoon.
In the time it takes to grow a tree, you can grow a country.
407 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this earth.
Fear is fear itself.
Here goes strong, the all-American boy.
Benny was born ignorant, and he's been losing ground ever since.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air.
Ask what you can do for your country.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
It only takes a minute to wipe out a century. A flash and nothing. And even the birds won't come anymore.
I just want to say a little something about Jim just told a bit of a lie, and I told you this before. Not long ago, my wife and I were married for 47 years, and every year I used to send her a poem, and they were nice. But this last year we were busy, and it happened to be with the MinuteMan Project was going on, and I didn't have time to write a poem, so I sent her flowers as usual, and I had the florist put a little note in there. And I said, I can't believe it's been 47. I guess that's because it's been like heaven. P.S. What a big liar you married. But Jim just said that I called him and demanded he get on the red eye and come out here. That's a big lie. But I have to tell, I have to tell you, there wasn't anybody happier in the state of Rhode Island when he called me and said he was in town. And he said, "When's your next R.I.I.L.E. meeting?" I said, "It just happens to be tomorrow night, Jim." He said, "I'll be there." But anyway, I don't have a lot of other things, except to say thank you to everybody and thank you for all the people that are always on the front lines with us and coming to the State House and standing outside in the rain with signs and all of that. And I think most of the people that are from R.I.I.L.E. that go to the State House with us, when they go, the reps and senators look and say, "There's one of those people from R.I.I.L.E." That's how well known the people from R.I.I.L.E. have become. And sometimes I probably shouldn't, well, I won't say this, but we get treated so good there by the Capitol Police. You would think we were part of their group down there. And everyone down there has been really, really nice to R.I.I.L.E. And a few of the advocates we've had almost some altercations with. And, we just have to keep track of everything and everybody. And Roland, one of our members, called me today, and he was a little upset. And he said, "Terry, you're not going to believe this one." I said, "What?" He said, "You remember Peter Asen? He happens to be the gentleman." Now, imagine him and I on the State House steps, and he's about 6'4", but he stood 3 steps down, and he said, "Hey, Terry, how does it feel to be a racist like those people from Arizona?" And he represented a group called Ocean State Action. And when I say we have to watch what's going on, what do you think Peter Asen's new job is? He's the legislative representative for Gordon Fox. For Gordon Fox. Now, that's the kind of things that we're up against. And when just related to the election, when you look at Governor Chafee, that's the first time I've called him that. Honest to God, I usually say Mr. Chafee. But when he promised us changing, the environment would change. The atmosphere in Rhode Island was going to change. There's not going to be any good old boy network anymore. The old-time control people are going to be gone. Now, if he's got some new legislator and took him and put him on his staff, well, that would be change. He resurrected people from the dead to get on his cabinet. I mean, he put Richard Leach in his cabinet. Richard Leach had become a buffoon. He walked around the State House, thought he was so full of himself he almost walked off the ground. But he was a big player. And then what does he do? The Department of Labor and Training gets a really unknown for the Department of Labor and Training. No political hack by any means. Charlie Fogarty, the former lieutenant governor. Yeah. And then he goes on, and he with his promise, the Department of Human Services, the Secretary of the Department of Health or whatever, another political unknown, guy that's been, off the radar, Steve Costantino, the former chairman of the Finance Committee in the state of Rhode Island. Look how good he did there. And now he's going to be in charge of basically overall overseer of the Department of Human Services. All of those departments are going to come under Steve Costantino. What happened to something new? What happened to new thought? It's absolutely ridiculous what he's done to us. And it's unfortunate, and one of the reps or senators mentioned it, I think it was Senator O'Neill, we have to keep plugging away, and regardless of the fact that we sometimes are going to say, we're going to get it passed this year in the House, and we're going to get it passed this year in the Senate, but the governor's going to veto it. Well, if that's the case, if he vetoes these things, then I'm going to be on the radio, I'm going to be on the phone, I'm going to be on the computer to every single one of those reps and senators and ask, do you have any cubes? You got to stand up and override that veto. Once and for all, we have to stand up for the people of Rhode Island. When you go there, that's what you're supposed to be working for the people of Rhode Island, for the people in your district. 84% of the people in Rhode Island want E-Verify. WPRI did a little straw poll a couple of years ago, right after the executive order. 92% of the people in Rhode Island said they wanted to E-Verify. Well, if that's the case, why aren't we getting these things? And we have to expose them. If the case is that the Speaker of the House says, I want that bill held for further study, then somebody that's on that committee has to stand up and say, no, I don't want it held for further study. And there are mechanisms that they can use and bring that out and not be afraid that they have a bill for such and such a thing. And if they get in the Speaker's face, he's going to see to it that their bill doesn't pass. Well, that's going to have to be a casualty of the system, because somebody has to stand up there and speak out and tell them we're not doing it anymore the way it's been done for all these years. Because it's a goddamn shame, in plain English. We live in supposed to be living in a democracy. We have representative government. What we have in Rhode Island is an oligarchy. Period. End of story. Where it's run by the Speaker, Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. And the President of the Senate doesn't even run it. Somebody else runs it for the President of the Senate. And I'll tell them that to their face, and they can deny it to me and all of that stuff. But that's the way it is. And it shouldn't be that two people decide everything that happens in the state of Rhode Island. And these folks speak up. I was there last year when Teresa Piva-Weed killed the E-Verify bill, and these two gentlemen here, along with Senator Pinger and Senator Ma, were standing there yelling and screaming, and the President of the Senate didn't even recognize him. So you're out of order. It's too late. And she didn't even know what to do. She turned around. She didn't know what decision to make, because they were demanding a floor vote, and there had been a voice vote. And she turned around. Imagine this. The President of the Senate turns to the parliamentarian, not even an elected position, turns to the parliamentarian and asks what to do. And she turned around. When she turned around, she looked like a deer in the headlights. She didn't know what to say. She looked for approval from somebody down on the floor. I know who it was that she looked for approval to. She looked for Senator Ruggiero. That's who she looked for approval to. And then she said, it fails. The ayes have it. The ayes have it, she said. And everybody was like flabbergasted, you know. And Senator, thank you very much, everyone, for coming.
This concludes this program broadcast. We the People, a freedom of speech television show. Go to www.wethepeopleofri.org.